individuals into the studio this morning. First of all, Mark Barnett, the mayor of Ludington. Good morning to you, sir. Thanks for coming in.
Morning, Chris. Thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely. And as well, Mitch Foster, city manager of Ludington. How are you doing, sir?
Oh, just lovely on a Monday morning, Chris.
All right. You're right next to the weather map. You could, if you want to point that way and say, this is, no, I'm just kidding. You don't have to do that.
Yeah.
But
I will say, yesterday, the last 2 days, it has been interesting. There's been so much like what looks like lake effect rain hitting us that it was fun to watch. And I'm so glad it was green instead of blue.
Yeah, absolutely. And did you see the double rainbows? You probably saw some social media posts and stuff like that. But did you have to get a chance to see that in person at all?
No, I just saw the pictures on social media, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you? Did you go outside?
I did not. I was, but I was pretty impressed with the camera shots. Just a ton of them. You know,
It's very cool.
And the end of the rainbow landed in a number of different spots. So it was pretty cool.
I know, and there's no gold anywhere. Where is it? we want to be able to catch up on that. We've got city council meeting tonight, 6 o'clock, right? 6 p.m. And obviously open to the public to come out. As always, you want people to come out. We always talk about to be a part of the conversation. You've been mayor for this is going to be up on almost 2 years at the end of this December, right?
Nope, it'll be 1 year. The end of this.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. And so, do you mind us checking in on you and seeing how things have progressed so far? What's it been like?
Well, it's been interesting. You know, obviously, attended a slew of city council meetings. You know, in my previous life, and that was very helpful. It was very helpful to know folks, but. Again, like Steve Miller had told me, you know, there's just a lot to learn, and there's a learning curve. So I've appreciated the patience that people have had with me, ability to give me information, freedom to make a few goofs and that kind of thing, and so it's been good.
All right. And one thing I noticed when I was looking at some of the congressional hearings for the speaker and such, they take that gavel. Have you ever seen when they hit the gavel in this? And it's absolutely the hardest hit with that gavel as I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And they do it all the time.
Well, and I think it was more ceremonial when the interim speaker counted the gavel after that vote, because I thought he was going to break the gavel.
Yeah, for sure.
Or break the piece that he hits it onto, because he swung hard. If Mark does that next to me, I may jump out of my seat.
I don't do that, because I think, if I remember, our kids gave you that as a present, right?
Yeah. Just enough to make noise, but not enough to break the handle.
Yeah. If you get a chance to see what happens, you saw it. Obviously. I was just shocked on that. But anyway, there's no moments at city council that it's required or ceremonial in this. But has it ever been a tense for you at city council at all over the past year? Any moments?
Just there was a little bit of public comment tension a little bit earlier on, and council passed some rules to kind of smooth things out, and that worked out good. Used it, I think, one time during that point, but generally every meeting, begin the meeting with 2 or 3 whacks on the gavel, and then end the meeting the same way, and just to kind of get people's attention.
All right. Well, looking forward to, again, tonight we've got short-term housing. That I don't know if that's a controversial topic or not. I would assume that there are some pockets out there that want a little bit more leniency in regards to that, at least the way I read it. And tell me if I'm wrong. It's 150 yards.
Feet.
Yep. 150 feet, okay. That you want to limit short-term housing. The ability to have short-term housing. Is that
yeah, I think that's fair, and honestly, what we want to do is have people have the ability to do that. I know there's families that want to come here and visit. They have relatives that want to come here and visit, and that's a wonderful thing. At the same time, we want to preserve our community, right? And that sense of this is where families live and that kind of thing. So how do you meld those together? And so I think, you know, having some reasonable guidelines, some reasonable set-offs or setbacks, I think totally makes sense. There's always going to be, in a city type situation where people are living closer, there's always going to be disagreements. There's always going to be things that happen. But you know what? We can implement some things too, some guidelines to kind of minimize or mitigate some of that. So I think that's what the council is going to consider doing tonight.
And on the short-term rental, Mitch, one thing I saw was that one per property.
Yep.
Is that an issue right now?
It's not necessarily an issue. However, the circumstances, as the mayor talked about, you have properties, I'll take I think it's the 200 block of North William, where you have two on, the way we currently do it is you're allowed 2 per city block section. So the 200 block of North William is a block section. So we have 2 there. We have 2 on the, whatever block of Pure Marquette East and whatever block of Pure Marquette West. You've got 2 more on the north block, and so it puts a ton all in one area, which is what we're trying to avoid. And so the 150-foot distances kind of tries to help with that. In addition, having 2 per parcel does make things a little bit more cramped as well. We've only got a couple of sites or rentals within the city that have that, where they've got either a duplex or 2 houses on one parcel that this is occurring, but it's very limited, and so we just want to recognize that, hey, it really should just be 1 per parcel.
And I guess that it extends to my next question, which is, what is defined as short term? I mean, is there going to be confusion among the public? Is it Airbnbs? Is it rentals for the summer? Is it just a couple of weeks? What defines this?
So we're really looking at the definition of short-term rentals 28 days or later.
Okay.
Or less, I should say.
Okay.
And so that's the definition. There's some question about, hotels that have some of their units on Airbnb. It still doesn't qualify because they were licensed as a hotel. These are the individual houses, condos, rentals that act as short-term for less than 28 days. And so one of the big changes that council is going to be considering tonight is actually bringing in all of the condominium facilities that act as short-term rentals. They won't apply to the cap that we have, which is 50 units, because most of them have been around since the buildings were built. But they will have to participate in the program in every other way, including the fee, including the inspection, including making sure that that they follow the rules accordingly. The only differences are, of course, within a condominium facility, you can't say you have to be 150 feet apart. They're all within one building. It doesn't work out that way.
Is there, Mr. Mayor, is there a reason why this has come up after the first kind of outlining of it?
Well, I think the council was right on target when they said, okay, we're going to implement this ordinance, and did all the stuff that they could think of in terms of how best to craft this ordinance. And then they fashioned in or included in a sunset clause, right? So we'll do it for a period of time, see how it works out. And over that period of time, there were some things that needed to be tweaked. And so that's really what this next ordinance is. It'll remove the sunset clause, make it a permanent ordinance, as I recall it, and just make those tweaks to make things better for not only the people that are doing them, that are owning and renting them out, but also for the people that are living there long term.
Is there going to be people that are upset based on this?
Yes.
Okay. and it's because they have existing, not necessarily looking. Where's the problem coming, I guess?
So I think there's, depending on which side of the issue, if you've lived in a neighborhood for 30 years, for example, and one drops out of the sky into the house next door, there's going to be those complaints, or potentially those complaints. If you've been doing it one way for the existing ordinance and it changes, there's going to be frustrations about that. And it's like anything else. You're never going to make everybody happy, but you really try to hit that sweet spot where it really it's not so intrusive, but yet it takes into account the folks that have lived there for a longer period of time.
Okay. All right. If you're just joining us, we're talking with Mark Barnett, Mayor of Ludington, here in the studio, as well as Mitch Foster, City Manager. I guess my final question in regards to this, Mitch, is, and we do bring this up from time to time, is how is this different than Manistee or Pentwater or Hart or other cities around us? Is there any difference? Are people going to look at this as any different than what we see out there?
So I'll take it on a statewide basis first. So one of the reasons why we're trying to make some of these tweaks is because the state continuously says that they're looking at just forcing us to allow short-term rentals across the city without any restrictions. And so what we're trying to do is allow short-term rentals in a regulated fashion. What I will say is when Carol Ann Foote, Kathy Winchesky, Angela Cerna, Joe Linnaeus were on the committee, and the folks that were crafting this back in the day, we had a number of communities that reached out to us to say, hey, we really like your ordinance. Could you come and show us how you do it? Do a Zoom call, whatever it may be. And so I think the city can be proud of that. I will say, communities, I believe Manistee still doesn't have a short-term rental specific ordinance. They just count all rentals together. Places like South Haven, Grand Haven, they have more specific ordinances. They might have a little bit larger cap. Their fees might be structured a little bit differently based on what kind of staffing they have. But a lot of them are trying to figure out and wade their way through it.
Okay, all right. Let's talk the Foster Elementary. That was going to be on the agenda for tonight, but that shifted. Is that correct?
Yes. So under the Commercial Rehabilitation Act statute, if the city approves that CRA exemption, or the district itself, the county, for us in this case, Mason County, is allowed 28 days of a review period to potentially pass a resolution not allowing it, based on any number of circumstances. And so it is our understanding that the county will be considering not approving that CRA tomorrow night at their meeting via resolution. The city has provided them materials to consider that we believe it's a legally allowed CRA application or Commercial Rehabilitation Act application. But we will see. I will be in attendance, and as will the developer, to try to talk about this situation.
Do you mind diving a little bit more into it under the reasons that you believe that they're going to deny it from the county standpoint? Yeah.
So my understanding is that there's been a couple of concerns brought forward to the county board regarding a definition within the statute, which is qualified facility. And so at their last meeting, when this was discussed, they said there was a couple of county commissioners that said they didn't believe that it was a qualified facility either. And so from our perspective, as well as from the State Tax Commission, because we have feedback from them, who are the ultimate regulators on this, it's a qualified facility under the statute in our perspective. And so we want to provide them as much material as possible that they didn't get in the first place. Because when we give them the information, essentially we just send them our resolution. We send them the letter that says, hey, this district has been created by the city. They have 28 days to consider it.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So by tomorrow night, we'll know what's going to happen there potentially, right? Is there sort of an appeal process? What happens at that point?
No. If the county says no, then the CRA just kind of falls apart.
Okay. Yep. And what does that mean for Foster Elementary after that? It's not dead in the water, right? As far as you know.
No. So this CRA, or the Commercial Rehabilitation Act, just applies to the kind of the vacant side of Foster. So they could still continue forward. It just may change the way that their rates are structured over there. And so I've asked the developer to kind of provide me with that information so that can be shared with the county board as well as the general public. Because I think anytime you talk about these tax exemptions or incentives, whatever it may be, there's always the discussion about more profit for the developer. Well, that may be in some circumstances, but in others, it's really just a difference in what the rates they can charge based on the amount of money that they have to take out in debt or in capital. And so that's what I'm really trying to figure out for us as well.
All right. If you're just joining us, we're talking with Mitch Foster, City Manager of Ludington, and Mark Barnett, Mayor of Ludington. We have some construction there at the corner of Rath and Ludington Avenue. That is that fenced-in area extends into the roadway, at least the northbound lane there, to ensure that the cranes and construction can happen. And there's some activity happening there to be the future Andes. That is on the agenda tonight, Mayor, and that is going to be kind of in that same idea of an exemption for Andes. What's happening there, if you don't mind?
We'll have a public hearing on
that
that particular site and that particular exemption certificate, and then once public has expressed their opinions and their concerns or their endorsement and their interest in seeing that development go forward, once that happens, then the council will consider adopting that resolution for the application, and then so that'll be those two pieces of those two actions.
All right. And I was looking at the packet over the weekend that goes out for the city council, and it looks like total cost or somewhat in that is nearly $11 million of an investment for that corner. Compared to other properties, that's pretty intense, right?
It's a big dollar amount, and I think. But if you look at it, just house building in general, building a house right now, you're close to $300 a square foot. We heard a number from a gentleman in town here that was a reasonable idea of a project. It was $550 a square foot. So the Andes project at $11-ish million, it's a big dollar amount, but that's just the cost of doing construction. Laura Street Apartments down by the aggregate dock down on South James Street, they're looking at closer to $21 million for 97 units. The cost of construction right now is astronomical.
Have you seen any sort of drop in it? I mean, we've talked a little bit about that a couple months ago. I mean, we had a peak, but then people were starting to say, well, the cost of lumber was coming down and materials, or has it gone back up, or is it just not flattened out enough that it is creating these gigantic price tags?
I don't know. It's weird to say, but we'll likely have a low-income housing project that will come forward for potential approval to the city at some point here in the next week. We might have another one that comes forward here in the next week as well. And you still have people building houses. It's interesting times right now to try to figure out what's next. I've got colleagues across the state and across the country that are saying they're seeing housing prices come down. We haven't seen that here yet. Obviously the bottom can always drop out like 06, 07, 08. But right now we're still a great place to live. You've got Harsco reopening and really rethrottling back up to build the snow throwers. So there are good things happening right now in Mason County.
All right. Again, if you're joining us, we are live on our Facebook page or YouTube channel, as well as on the air and on our streaming devices, smart devices, Amazon Alexa, Google Home. Topic has come up to the top of the surface again, which is Gus Macker. And I talked to these two individuals prior to us going on the air that we wouldn't discuss it too much. Part of the reason is we want to be able to give the city council the ability to make a decision in regards to Gus Macker tonight. It's moved out of the committee, the subcommittee, Parks and Rec committee there, to be voted on by city council tonight. And so we don't want to weigh too much in because it's something that is in all transparency. It's WMOM and myself and Andy Reamer teaming up together to make this a sustainable project moving forward. Mr. Mayor, you've been around here for most of Gus Macker, I would assume, all of Gus Macker, I think.
Yeah, about 22, 23 years.
Yeah. And I think, part of when people say it's good for the community and sees visitors come in, and then there's some people that say, well, I wish it was gone forever, and so on and so forth. Part of the reason is because, there were some peaks over that time, 1,500 teams. And that was kind of chaotic for the city, I would assume, right?
Well, that's my understanding because I got here after post 1,500 teams. Okay. So I think the rate that we were at, the capacity, we were at about 1,200 when I came here in 2001. And so, and I can tell you that there was, you take that many people, so you figure almost 5,000 players, right? Mm-hmm. At 1,200 apiece, you figure 4 per team.
Yeah.
And then you figure, let's just say another 3 to 4 spectators per person. So you're, 7,000, 8,000 people. And that's a lot of people to bring into a town whose population is about 8,000. Mm-hmm. So clearly you're dumping, double the population and so there's going to be people that bump into each other, mm-hmm. Either just socially or sometimes literally, and so you need to really be careful about that kind of stuff. But you know what, the law enforcement, Ludington Police Department has done an excellent job, helped by Mason County Sheriff's Office, and they've been really, really great about doing that. The committee, the local committee, has been wonderful about working with law enforcement to do what they did. And with DPW, just do a yeoman's task as far as getting ready for it. And you know this, Chris, mm-hmm. I mean, from talking to all those folks. So, again, I mean, there's a lot to be done, but I think the numbers that they're talking about for this year and maybe possibly going forward are manageable. So.
Yeah, and that was, and that part of that conversation will come up tonight at City Council. Mm-hmm. But from a city standpoint, it's good to have events. If it's Macker or anything else, it's good to have events here in a tourist area, mm-hmm. But that still focuses on the local community. But if some of those events do fall off over the summer, sometimes it's hard to replace. Mm-hmm. But how important is various events for the city of Ludington?
I think for Mason County in general, these sorts of events, whether it's things that go on out at the state park, whether it's Macker, whether it's the Fall Festival over in Scottville, even the cookouts that happen at the local fire departments across the county, these are all important because they, a lot of them build a sense of community for those places, but they also draw in people. I mean, I think about the sesquicentennial kickoff here, that weekend of June 10th and 11th that we had. That was massive. I mean, we had 10,000 potential people at one point in time near downtown. And so that helps local businesses. That helps families get out and have a place to enjoy themselves. It's just a good thing. What I will say is, sometimes events just happen to just slowly wean away or die off, and that's okay too. Especially when they get replaced by things. I think about how on Sunday evenings there was not a lot going on in different places other than church services going on, and now our recreation program is now put on what looks to be a very thriving beach volleyball program with 10 to 15 teams. Mm-hmm. That's a good thing. And so I think, there's a natural ebb and flow to all of these sorts of events and situations, and Macker may not be done yet. It may be, but we don't know. And so this will be an interesting conversation moving forward.
And tonight, from the city council standpoint, what do you think those questions might be that you have, Mr. Mayor, or even Mitch, that would be good to bring up, if you don't mind?
I think some of the things that are going to come up are you going to have enough volunteers? You're going to have enough officials? What are your thoughts on what do you need from public safety? What do you need from DPW? All of those kind of things. I can envision council asking about those things, and what are what's your plan to do to address each of those issues or the other issues that have been Macker related in years past. So I just think it's going to be a good opportunity for free back and forth in terms of with a counselor to counselor, and they can discuss it and come up with a decision that I'm sure will be right for Ludington.
Absolutely. That is on tap tonight. There was an article in the Ludington Daily News over the weekend, and based on just conversations, or not conversations, but just based on data, that was part of the packet there. More to come out tonight as part of Macker, but I'm not going to inject my opinions at this point. I'll be presenting in front of the two of you and the rest of the council tonight. But in all seriousness, it's been fun to be able to watch council from home on video. But to be when you stream it live, but to be able to be in person, I might be a little nervous tonight. I might be sweating a little bit, but I think it's important, Mitch, that the subcommittee was able to ask a lot of those questions, vet a lot of that out, and then move it on to the city council decision.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and we, with any event like this, and Assistant Jackie Steckel knows this. Brandon Miller from the Chamber Alliance knows this. Mark knows this from his time. The city tries to meet with these potential events ahead of time, especially if they're large scale, so that all of staff and maybe a representative from council or the mayor can sit in and have a discussion about, all right, here's what the realities are. And so we were able to do that with you as well, Chris, to help kind of prepare and give you feedback before you submitted. And then the committee still had additional questions. And so I think it was a good back and forth. My only thing is, as long as I don't have to play anymore, I'm okay with whatever decision. But I think there are, in all seriousness, I think there are safety concerns that come with big events like this, and making sure that the participants, that the vendors, that the volunteers, and all of the visitors are safe, whether that's from a public safety standpoint or just from a physicality standpoint, because having sand sweep across those courts, as I know from firsthand experience, isn't the greatest thing. And so how do you maintain that or deal with that? I think there are interesting questions that will come about tonight, considering this will be would be the first chance you guys would have to host this event yourselves.
Absolutely, and we appreciate that, and I like the idea that it was set in stone for 31 years, and so even if it wasn't new faces, it would have probably continued, for the 32nd, 33rd year, and so we look forward to that. I think the nice thing about it is that Manistee was definitely interested. They voted 7-0 for an exploratory committee for that. So So hopefully we'll see our city council here embrace it as well, and that's just part of that conversation.
Yeah, and I've had conversations with my peer up there, Bill Gamble. Kind of giving him the feedback and the insight that we've got from down here. And every community has got to make a decision based on what they think is right for them.
Absolutely.
And so council has their opportunity tonight.
All right, we'll keep the camera on you for a moment. Anything that we missed talking about that's on the agenda for this evening?
The only thing, and this is a kind of a dump subject, but we've got the septage and leachate rates again on for tonight. So if you are a hauler out there, if you are a Malbergs, or if you are somebody that does that work, we are going to be tying the rates of septage and leachate hauling and dumping off at our facility to what we charge our normal residents, so that it's fair across the board. And so they'll see an increase at the same time that all of our normal residents see an increase, which I think is important. It shows fairness across to everybody, and it looks to the future as well.
All right, same question for you, Mr. Mayor.
Well, we've got a couple reminders on the end of the agenda that I'll just kind of preview. We get there's an invasive species presentation that's going to happen on October 17th at 7 p.m. at the Lakeshore Resource Center. I know some of the council members and other folks in particular are pretty concerned, myself included, pretty concerned about the invasive species that exist, not only, citywide really. Certainly in Cartier Park, I know there's a lot of work that's been done by a few and others to do that. And then there's going to be a canine presentation on October 18th at 6:30 at the council chambers here in the City Hall. And just an opportunity for folks to get some information about the canine program. So looking forward to that.
All right, and great job by the businesses. I'm not sure if the numbers have rolled in yet, but 10% to 15% of some of the downtown area businesses this past weekend contributing to the canine the canine program, the $80,000 benchmark that they're looking at. We had Officer Brian Sanders, and then Sergeant Habman on last week to talk a little bit about that, and we'll have them on in the future. But from the city standpoint, I would assume both of you embrace this this venture by the police department.
Absolutely.
Okay, thoughts on that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, as long as Sergeant Haveman isn't the one handling the dogs, since I heard on the radio that he does not like dogs.
Yeah.
And I'll keep repeating that because I know he likes it so much. I think it's a great opportunity to augment and to support the county, as well as because they've supported us for so many years. This is a great opportunity to kind of combine and to work together really well in this program.
All right. Looking forward to discovering that as we go. Mr. Mayor, thanks for taking some time with us. All right.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. And Mitch Foster, City Manager, thank you.
Not a problem. Thank you as always.
You got it. 9:08 now here on 102.7.